Hello and welcome to Property Question Time. I'm Stephen Galpin and this is a show where we can put our experts to task answering your questions about the property industry. Joining me today is John Howard, property developer, investor, mentor, author and jolly good chap.
Do you know what? Some people think we don't like each other. I've had a number of people say, do you actually like Stephen?
Really?
And the answer always is the same, Stephen.
Right. Probably similar to the answer I give when I'm asked that question. But there we are. We have to make sacrifices in life, don't we, John?
We have to work together on occasions.
Okay, well, joining John Howard today is Ben Richards for his second appearance on Property Question Time, so we couldn't have been too bad the first time. Ben is MD of Aura Homes. Welcome to you.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Good. Well, let's get straight on with the questioning. Ben, you're going to go first.
Mm-hmm.
I'm planning to build my own house and have sought advice from the local authority who have said any design must be sympathetic to the local environment. I need to give my architect a brief for the design, but how will he assess and incorporate such sensitivities into the design?
Yeah, I mean, if you're having to give a brief to your architect, you've probably got the wrong architect, really. You know, the brief should be more about what you want from the property. You know, how you live in living the space. You know, the kids that you've got, what lifestyle choices you've made, what sports you enjoy, like how you want to live your life. And the architect's job then is to work with the planning consultants and all the other design team to understand the local planning policies, design something that is. The sympathetic thing, sometimes councils actually prefer a more like chalk and cheese approach. If it's a contemporary build, for example, in an area, they don't want something too, what they call it, pastiche, where it's sort of trying to be something it's not. And sometimes they prefer you to go completely the other way and have something a bit more contemporary and out there. So, but if you're having to give that brief to the architect, then they're not really doing their job. Their role is to take the local requirements from the planning authority and take the way that you want to live in the space, and then hopefully come up with a scheme that works for both parties.
It's quite interesting out in the country. I think, in the home counties in particular, one of the things that I've seen in the past is that the parish councils, who are the first port of call for your planning journey, are very keen to keep it as it was, and would be very happy for you to actually build something that it actually wasn't, as long as it looked the same as everything else that was in the village. But the moment then it moves to county council and the bigger authority that actually has the say of what can be, they are the more adventurous, I think. And I've often wondered how architects marry those two sort of differing interests.
I mean, you've got the client, you've got So mainly,
that's the other thing. You've got a client to bring into it.
But most of the time, you're dealing with the planner themselves. When it goes to the parish, a lot of the time, the parish feed into the main planning authority. When they go out for consultation, they'll get feedback from the parish. And to be honest, I've seen a lot of parish council responses that have things in there that are not relevant at all, but somebody brought it up, and the planning officer himself will then decide which ones he actually deems,
if any,
worthy, if any.
Bunch of do-gooders, aren't they, that lot?
I mean, it's typical NIMBYism, isn't it, with the sort of
I
parish.
can remember going to a parish council with something I wanted to build, and the lady chair threw my plans around the table and said, "You better look at what this man thinks he wants to build in our village,"
Or looking at it the wrong way around or something, I should think.
Probably.
Yeah, honestly, hopeless.
Most people in
we do need to streamline this system, don't we?
Well, the government are saying they will, so let's see what they can do.
Yeah, but it can take, well, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I mean, from what I've seen, it can take almost as long to get planning for a house as it is for a development.
Yeah, absolutely. And
it's totally out of proportion.
Hugely. The pre-app process, which is sort of what most councils want you to do. So you submitted a scheme, it's kind of off the record, they give you some feedback, but you may as well put in a full application because there's no time frame dedicated to that pre-app. We had a pre-app for one single house in a backland development that took 10 months to get a response. We could have submitted 3 applications in that process.
Excuse me, I thought they had to come back within 28 days.
No,
They don't anymore.
No.
They did do it at one point.
There's no...
Early on, they had...
Depending on councils,
Right,
yeah,
okay.
but there's no statutory time frame in pre-app.
I also think it's
thought there
about size of council, because on some of these parish councils, they will have a dedicated person on that committee that deals with the pre-apps for the very local authority, for the parish council. And the difficulty is what his diary is like, because it'll be a guy that's working or a lady that's working full time. Time is precious to them. They might have 20, 30, 40 applications for various things. And by the time they've got round to you, it is months.
Yeah, I mean,
disgraceful.
The whole process is broken. The time frames are certain. Time is money to developers. You know, we understand that. And we've had situations where things have dragged out for 14 months for just some external works to change windows and replace a conservatory. And you know, this planning officer has left. Someone that you're almost at the point where you get the approval, then they leave, someone else comes in and they have to open a can of worms again and go through the whole process again.
Could have a different
and have a different viewpoint.
Yeah.
Totally different opinion.
Yeah, it's bonkers.
I always leave it to architects like Ben and say, right, you lead it. You know, I'm the developer, you lead it. I appreciate when it's someone's home, they need more input, and that's where it becomes more.
I think just to answer our viewers' question quite clearly, I think what we're saying, isn't it, is that, you know, the moment you appoint your architect, make sure you've got the right one, and hand the job over to the architects. Just let them deal with it.
And it probably is
stay out of it.
Yeah, and a planning consultant is so key, regardless of whether it's a private homeowner project or a property developer, because an architect is trained in design and they're creatives. The planning consultant is more from a legal perspective and a planning policy perspective. They're going to be able to drive things forward a little bit better. An architect won't necessarily know the ins and outs of every single planning policy, whereas it's the planning consultant's job to be working
and possibly
with them.
Because that officer is local, and he will know the local attitudes.
But isn't that amazing? Because years and years and years ago, the architect did everything, didn't they? They'd even go along and see the planning. They'd go down, have a cup of tea with the planning officer.
They still will. But I think what I'm saying is the sort of
bigger job.
Getting your best chance of success is having somebody that's trained in town planning. You know, these are registered town planners. An architect is a registered architect. They need to work together. I
mean, I think one of the huge problems that we've got is a lot of planning decisions, irrespective of what the recommendation is from the planning officer. You've got probably up to 12 people on a county council committee that haven't got a clue about building, haven't got a clue about construction, or anything else.
One of them fell asleep in our recent committee meeting.
I can't, Ben, but you're not that boring, so I can't see why that would happen.
I wasn't talking.
Okay, thank you, Ben. John. Developers, certainly in London, have increased the height and volume of buildings immensely each year. Do the experts think that with hugely increased material costs, developers will scale back the size of developments? In other words, de-risk. If this were to be the case, the national house stock shortages would become even greater, would they not?
I think you sent that question in yourself, didn't you? Because you are London-centric, London-obsessed. What are you going to remember? What you got to remember is that the London property market is so different to everywhere else in the UK. It's so different. You know, in London, you got massive blocks. They're getting taller and taller and taller. Depending where they are, they're worth an absolute fortune, and the build costs are a lot more expensive. But pro rata, you try doing the same thing you do in London, in Preston or Burnley, or it's just impossible to do. So the answer to your question is I don't think it will stop. I think it will continue, because you can in London you can take down an 8-storey building, a 10-storey building and more, and replace it with a 40-storey building. And the higher you go, technically, and Ben will probably disagree with me here, being the architect and developer, but as you go higher, it's probably got cheaper. Technically, because the risk is in the ground, the piling is all in the ground as you go up. So really, if you're a developer and you can get another 20 stories on something, 15, 20, 30, why wouldn't you? But it doesn't work. All the sort of stuff that works in London does not work anywhere else. Simple as that.
Okay. But
sorry to disappoint you, Steve.
I mean, I think the key thing is that a developer's job is to add value, and one of the best ways and most profitable ways of adding value is adding space. I don't think
Yeah.
any developer is going to want to shrink their schemes
No.
just because if the build costs are £200
but I think
for 400.
it's a risk factor, isn't it? You know, we were talking to a procurement company yesterday, and they were saying that one of their jobs now has got much more sophisticated because they get involved with developers right through the process. Because
Yes.
if you're building one of these 70-story things with, you know, that's £1 billion GDV. There are various stages over the year where your material costs are probably doubled by the time you're getting to the top 25 stories or so.
But we're doing the same thing as well, though. We're using procurement companies now to look at the cost of all the materials prior to starting the job. One, so we're not getting our leg lifted by the contractor. Of course, they'd never do that, would they?
No.
And secondly, if we've got the cash, we can actually buy it all.
Mm-hmm.
Or they've got to store it somewhere,
Yeah.
and then feed it into the development as you go.
Mm-hmm. Do you act as a contractor as well as the developer?
I never want to act as a contractor.
Push that
Thank
risk
you very
onto
much.
the contractor.
Everything's on a JCT fixed price contract.
Yep. Yeah, same.
So the answer to the question is?
They'll keep going higher and higher in London, but you can't do it anywhere else.
Okay. Thank you for that. Right, well, that's all we've got time for in this half of the show. So join me after the break when we'll be asking Ben and John more of your questions. Hello, welcome back to part 2 of Property Question Time, joined by Ben Richards and John Howard. Welcome back, guys.
Thank you.
And we'll get straight on with the first question again for you, Ben. There has been much in the news about water drainage malfunctions causing problems in our rivers. I assume that when a new development is built, the latest drainage systems are used, but this is surely just putting extra strain on our ageing Victorian national pipework. Is there a simple solution to this, or do we need to consider this problem more deeply when choosing sites? And I think it's a good question for you, Ben, because when we think about architects, we think about design, visual effects, but there's some very serious sort of side effects with building. I mean, I think the way I had it explained to me about this drainage business is that in years gone by, your drainage from a house was not particularly great. It went into a sort of open field as a sort of soak away, and then gradually meandered its way into a river. Now, rain falls on your house and 2 seconds later it's in the river. So these are quite serious considerations, and are probably adding to some of the flooding issues that we've got. What's the answer?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's a couple of things happening at the moment. I don't know if you've been involved in any of the nitrates issues that are happening sort of by the coast, which is more of a Homes England. They've basically banned all development for the last 2-3 years in certain places.
Norfolk especially.
Norfolk, yeah. We had a site in Canterbury that we managed to get out of just in time. But from if we're talking about London and old Victorian pipework, I mean, there are building regulations that Part G of the building regulations are all about water efficiency, where they are trying to limit your water usage, put flow restrictors on showers, and A++ rating on washing machines that use less water. So there is a push to try and get developers in new housing to limit the amount of water usage within the property. Your toilets are your toilets. You can't use suds. Yeah, so we've got sustainable urban drainage systems that a lot of councils are now pushing for. So talking about your soakaways, it's where does the rainwater go? Where does the surface water go? They are trying to make you on-site, provide on-site facilities for that. So big crates that have voids where the water goes into it and then slowly dissipates into the ground, rather than taking that surface water into the old Victorian pipework system in London, which is often a combined system, which is where I imagine there are lots of issues happening, because it's taking all the foul, all the surface, everything is going into this old pipework.
Look, if you have one of these blocks with 1,000 residents in, I mean, that's quite some volume of water being used, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there will be some provision for like on-site kind of treatment of that, or grey water recycling, which is being used a lot more. So
retention tanks.
Reusing it, retention. So actually, all of your water that you use in your sink may be being recycled for your toilet water. So there's systems and processes that are available to you, and building regulations are pushing you to use more of those things to reduce your usage. But it's the sort of thing that often gets overlooked, to be honest, by developers. And
And councils too, perhaps?
Well, yeah, from a building control perspective, there's not, I don't think there's enough rigidity in terms of checking that people are installing what they should be installing and actually putting those flow restrictors in and reducing the demand to where it needs to be.
Interesting, of course, you can get planning permission without a suds pond, and then find you've got to put a suds pond in, which is a pond that takes all the surface water. So surface water goes into a pond that you've got to dig, but if you can't put one in, you've got a major problem, because if they don't let you put it into the mains water, we had one in Birmingham where they've let us do it, fortunately. Severn Trent, very nice people. They've let us do it. In Scotland, we took 7 houses part built down to put our suds pond there.
Wow.
Because the developer who bought it and went bankrupt on it, he was going to put the suds pond on other land that he owned, and we didn't want to negotiate with him, so we took down 7 of the part finished ones to put the suds ponds there. But can I just mention farmers in all this? Because farmers have the easiest ride of the lot. They contaminate, the rivers are contaminated by farmers. 85% of all contamination in rivers is farmers, fertiliser and so on coming off. The developer gets a really, really bad PR on this, and it's very little that the developers are doing. It's much more, far more farmers, and the farmers get away with it.
It's the agricultural runoff, isn't it? Yeah, more so
Crazy.
Than the new
far
build.
More, far more. It's not right.
Was I reading somewhere that now planning on farmland is a lot easier for farmers themselves when they want to?
Well,
there's Part Q,
there's Part
PD
Q
rights,
and all sorts, isn't
which
there?
helps. So you can convert barns and outbuildings far easier, and they've just increased, I think, the size limit of those. You can convert more on site.
Now, what's going to happen? Obviously, under Labour, we're not sure yet, are we? But they're going to change things. But they are, of course, and it's another subject. They are talking about compulsory purchasing farmland at agricultural value to build new towns. The last new town that was built, Milton Keynes.
Yes.
And that was done under a Labour government at agricultural farm values.
Yes.
So we'll see.
I mean, there was a lot of criticism of these created towns, wasn't there, at one time? But I think they've settled down well. I think they've integrated well with the rest of the country. And there was Milton Keynes. Peterborough was an area that was developed tremendously, wasn't it? And
yes, it was already there. Something there, wasn't there? But they've grown it immensely. Yeah.
No, I think it's a good idea, and I think. As we talked earlier about a particular subject, I think you need your handcuffs taken off, don't you? Really?
Totally. They've got to be dynamic about it.
I mean, I think you said earlier 230,000 a year, whereas we need at least 350,000. If
we
not
need
more
500,000.
Yeah, we're nowhere near the
nowhere
amount.
Near.
There's so much talk about land banking. They're not really land banking. They need the planning approvals to get going.
Well,
no developer wants to really sit on their hands.
Just from a normal commercial point of view, good heavens, if I'm a developer and I buy a bit of land, I bought it. The key to a good deal is what you buy something at, rather more than
what you sell it for.
So okay, I bought my land well. What does government think they are telling me when I've got to develop it? What are they at?
Exactly. They're the ones slowing it down most of the time.
Do they want to pay the interest?
I think you'll find they'll force developers to build quicker.
But then we need the trades, we need the skill set. It's just
I'm just saying what's going to happen.
Broken cycle.
Yeah. Just saying what's going to happen.
Oh well, interesting times to come. John, your question. Do the panel think it reasonable that government should have the right to interfere or overrule local authorities when it comes to planning consent decisions? It seems hard to believe that central government would have a better knowledge of such intensely local matters, more so than those who are local to the area.
Well, what I would say is they've always done that through the appeal system.
Doesn't make it right, though, does it?
They've always done it through the appeal system. And I had a situation in Hungerford where we waited 4 months for the planning application to be registered. It wasn't registered, so we went straight to appeal on non-determination, which is what you can do after 3 months. And Ben will explain that more in a minute, I'm sure. And the inspectorate comes in from the government, paid by the government, or you pay, but they're employed by the government, and to make that decision. I think if Labour are serious about building more homes, they're going to have to take it out the hands of the local authority. That's my view. And the sooner they get on and do that, the better, because otherwise it just gets held up. They're talking about, reforming the planning system. They've got to be dynamic and brave about it to make any difference at all. So my view is, yes, I think they will, and they need to get on with it as quick as possible.
I think it was written by a Mr. or Mrs. NIMBY, I think, to be honest. I just think, it's to put it in the locals' hands is not going to get anywhere. There's going to be too much, it's just too much back and forth and, not in my backyard type mentality, whereby nothing gets built. Somebody has to make a strong decision at government level, feed that back to force more developments to happen. We are in a massive need of housing and not enough. But I think
perhaps one solution might be, rather than one or the other making a decision, why the government can't say to councils, perhaps, okay, submit your local plan.
Well, they have done.
Well, to a point, but you must, out of so many square miles or whatever else, you must identify at least so many % of developable area. And then, okay, it comes back from government, yes, we approve this, but you must develop in those areas within the next whatever. And that brief can go out to developers who can bid for the land, make their offers for the land, and
that sort of
it's still a bit of control,
now, Ben, doesn't it? It sort of happens now.
I mean, it takes too long to write these local plans a lot of the time. By the time it's been written, things have changed. We don't need 2 beds, we need 1 bed, we need this area, we need that area. Everything takes too long when you look at the local government.
This country is desperate, isn't it? Anything major takes years and years to do, and somehow we need to speed that up. Dramatically.
I still think we suffer from a lot of local councillors who are not really competent to make these decisions.
Well, I agree. They're amateurs, and it should be with professionals, is the truth.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, agreed. Okay. Now then, Jed, so we're coming to the end of the programme. So I think what I would like to do is just ask you both what you think the future holds for us over the next year or two in terms of development. Ben?
I think there's been a lot of volatility over the last couple of years. Going forward, I just want a bit of stability, but with elections and changes in government and stuff, that's just not going to happen. So strap in, I think, would be the my advice. Try to de-risk your sites as much as you possibly can.
I think I'd say just be careful what you wish for.
Yeah,
they've actually wished for it, haven't they?
Yeah, John.
And got it. I would say that I'm concerned for the small developer, the developer that builds between 3 and 10 detached houses. If you haven't got planning yet and you're going through a planning process, by the time you've got through that process, you might find that social housing requirements have changed. They've gone up. Under Labour last time, 1 in 3 houses had to be a social house. Then it became over 1,000 square metres, which is what it is now. But they are going to clobber the local developers. They probably won't clobber the really big, top 10, because they've got so much clout of their own. But the ones who are vulnerable are people like us, people like Ben. I mean, Ben's unique because he's an architect and a developer, so he's got even more unique insight into this, really. But I'm very, very concerned, especially first-time developers.
Okay, but John,
I really am.
Are we just touching on dangerous ground here, because we've had a government over the last few years that has almost demonised the small buy-to-let landlord.
Totally.
But if you think made life very difficult.
Yeah, but if you think that's bad, you wait now.
Well, that's my point. Is that now being applied to small developers?
Well, I think it will be. I mean, the big developers as well, but the big developers can cope with it better. A small developer, you're going to so they agree to buy a site and then go for planning, and suddenly the rules change. It's now 1 in 3 social housing. I mean, what are they going to do?
Kills the deal.
It kills it completely.
I already look at schemes whereby I max out my number of units on site to 9. Because I don't want to do 10. Like the site could take 12, 14 properties, but actually I have to scale it back, really, because as soon as you go past that 9 into affordable housing territory, the numbers don't stack up.
It's a third, 30%.
It's really tough.
In Cambridge, I think it's 50%, 40, 50%. London, it's 40, 50%.
Yeah.
It's serious, and they're not going to allow you to negotiate that down at all. So I think because just for the next year, I think just got to be a bit careful what you want to get into.
Okay, well, thank you both very much. So a big thank you to John Howard. Thank you to Ben Richards.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure, as always.
Both very good input to the programme. Thank you both very much indeed for coming in today. I'm Stephen Galpin. Join me again next time on Property Question Time.